Hello again, Wayne Conrad here, and I wanted to show you how to build F5 Big IP Load Balancer on top of Ravello Systems Cloud. As you can see here, I've got a Big IP virtual machine that I've already uploaded. This is Big IP 11.6 Virtual Edition, and this is how simple deploying a VM is on Ravello. Done. Not kidding. That's it. Now, there's obviously the update is required pending change, which I've got to do every time, but let's go ahead and run this update so that the VM will create. And you can see here my VM now has more CPUs, more memory, more disk space, blah, 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 and the price increases, what, 20 cents? That's how much a small VM costs to create on Ravello, 20 cents an hour. Can't beat it. So here we go. Let's go ahead and build out this VM. As you can see, it goes into a publishing state. Now, I've already gone in here and removed the 2 extra NICs. By default, the Big IP ships with 4 NICs. The other problem I had the first time that I deployed this was that it seems to be getting the wrong bootable disk. Disk 1, I believe, is the correct bootable disk. So after this VM fully provisions, we're going to see if it boots. If it doesn't boot, just switch the boot disk. I don't know why Ravello currently doesn't seem to honor OVF boot settings, but at some point I assume that that's going to be fixed. So I'm not actually going to show you how to configure too much of the Big IP load balancer today. I'm just going to go through some of the opening portions of logging in. Your configuration is going to depend on your system, but I'll go ahead and get you to the point where you're installing the license file and everything else. I know that some of you are wondering how it is that we have all these different ESX images and everything else. Truth is, VMware partners get 90-day trial keys. Ask your VAR. Worst case scenario, you install ESX and vCenter, you get 30 days. And I used all the Microsoft trial software that's available on their website to build my lab. I've left this at the default CPU and memory. If I'm load balancing 6, maybe 7 view sessions at a time, I need far less than that, although I believe that this is pretty close to the minimum. I had configured this based on the Big IP documentation. Hold on, let me pull that up for you. Okay, so there are 2 good deployment guides out on the F5 website for building a view environment with F5. This one, the VMware View IAP Deployment Guide 11.6, that's really great. It's got LTM and APM on here. However, the one that I was working from yesterday was the longer version, the optimized configuration. F5 Networks Horizon View Optimized for APM IAP Deployment Guide. I know it's a mouthful. I'll put the links on the description on YouTube so that you can look at it. And this version actually works with multiple different OS versions of F5, so it's a little bit better, I think. And it actually has the next finish level documentation on page 15 to build out your Big IP. For instance, you see deploy OVF template, blah, blah, blah. You can skip all of that, but here's the virtual CPUs and RAM as I specified. And there's a 100 gig default disk, a 50 gig secondary disk. So you can skip all that, and this is where you actually power the system on, log into it, and begin the configuration steps. So let me show you that real quick. We're going to see if this thing has, oh, well, booting from hard disk is how it looked previously. That was not correct. So the power off policy on this server actually requires me to power it straight off. It's off now. So make the 100 gig disk bootable, save, give it a second, update, and now we can get started for real. Okay, so we're back. As you can see, the Big IP has now booted because we used the correct disk this time. And let's go ahead and start configuring it. So if you look at the F5 Networks Horizon View Optimized for APM IAP Deployment Guide, I almost have to take a breath first. The default passwords are root and default. It would help if I could type. All right, so punch in config to start the basic config process. Now, all we're doing here is creating a default IP address. It's going to pull one from DHCP if you're going ahead and using a standard AutoLab build. So just go ahead and say yes. I believe it's pulling 101 because I had manually specified 101 on the previous big IP that I had in here before I deleted it. And that's literally all you have to do. Now, we can go to the vCenter, although instead I'm actually going to remote desktop into the vCenter. Because the performance is just really, it's not where, VNC is not the best thing in the world to use, let's be honest. And with that screen resolution, configuring things can be pretty painful. I really recommend having a second monitor to have this PDF documentation with you, or just print it out. It can be kind of in-depth, and it really helps to follow along at a next finish level. But I'm just going to go back and forth between the document and my remote desktop window so that you can see what I'm up to. As you can see, remote desktoping into your stuff in Ravello is shockingly easy. All you need to know is your admin password, and you're good to go. And of course, I have to type HTTPS 2.168.199.101. Yeah, typical Microsoft. Oh, you must have that wrong. Let me fix that for you. This is the built-in AutoLab portal. It links to a bunch of different useful things. All right, so here's the big IP configuration page. And pin this here. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. All right, so default username and password is admin. All right, so click next. All right, license properties. I'm going to go ahead and pause this for a second while I put in the trial key that F5 Networks gave me. I'm sure that they don't want you seeing that. Sorry. Okay, so as you see, once you enter the license key, there's always an in-user license agreement that you have to click through. So I'm going to go ahead and click through that. There's several points throughout the process where you're going to have to log in again, especially after it makes you change the password. But as you can see, the first time that you log in, I have a license key with all the features. I don't know that you will have that, but we want to turn on Access Policy Manager, and we probably want to turn it on to minimum because, let's be honest, there's not going to be that much stuff going through this. We want to go ahead and make LTM minimum. And I'm going to go ahead and install GTM, which has also been renamed Big IP DNS recently, because one of the cool possibilities about Ravello is that I can take my entire lab, mark it as a blueprint, make a complete copy of it, and then I can have multi-site view with GTM load balancing it in between two separate instances. Now, it'll be split brain because I didn't actually set up a full cloud pod architecture, but you can't beat it for 10 minutes worth of work. So it might reboot this system. I don't remember if it is or not, but let's let it roll. Okay, never mind. It doesn't like the fact that I've got such a small amount of memory, so I'm going to take GTM off. So now we come to the SSL certificate configuration. I don't plan on making any changes to the SSL certificate because I don't know what the external IP address and the external DNS name is going to be. As you can see from the Ravello web page, the DNS names are kind of randomly generated every time they start. Boy, this this process is kind of pokey. Okay, so as you can see, it's back now. Let's click continue. By the way, I've neglected to mention that F5 has a lab license, non-production, available for $99. That's a fantastic deal. So don't just use the trial keys. Go ahead and buy yourself a lab license, because if you're not at a VAR, you're going to have a hard time constantly getting lab licenses and everything else, and you might want to get a tiny little bit of support with your lab now and then. So anyway, as you can see, here's the default SSL certificate that it generates. like I said, I'm not going to bother with it right now, but remember, you are going to want to use subject alternative names to cover a variety of potential IPs that your view environment could be using. And I believe it's pretty easy to set up Dyn DNS to use a full DNS name with the Ravello lab. Because like I said, anything you can do, you can absolutely do. So host name, I'm going to call it F5 big IP dot lab.local, which is the default fully qualified domain name for AutoLab. Use the management port IP address. I'm in Dallas, so let me find America Chicago on here. Okay, so I'm going to set a new root account password. The root account, remember, is the console, and the admin account is the web page. Don't get that confused. And I'm going to make sure that this is, well, you know what? I'll go ahead and allow SSH for all IP addresses right now. Eventually, we're not going to want it facing externally. So as I said, yeah, once you update the passwords, it's going to force you to log in again. So here we go. Admin and my super secret admin password. And I think this is about where I'm going to leave you, because the network configuration stuff is a long, long process on its own, and there's several other YouTube video makers who've done a much better job of this than I ever would. But this will get you to the place, by following my instructions, that you can either follow the installation guide to finish it out, or you can follow the YouTube people. It's your choice. But as you can see, F5 works just fine in Ravello's cloud, despite being a little bit painful to start immediately. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a good day.